All right, so we're ready to jump into some serious NBA action from some pretty recent games.
Absolutely, yeah.
We've got 5 matchups to break down. Pelicans and the Bucks Warriors against the Rockets. Nuggets taking on the Pacers, Knicks facing the Suns, and then the Hawks and the Jazz.
It's like a good mix.
Yeah, and the idea here is to really go beyond just like who won and lost and dig into, those key moments and those performances that really kind of dictated the outcome, you know?
Yeah, think of it as like pulling back the curtain and looking at what really mattered in these games.
Yeah, exactly.
What were the deciding factors?
Okay, so first up, let's head to New Orleans for the Pelicans hosting the Bucks.
Okay.
And this one ended up being a pretty close game. The Bucks won it 111 to 107.
Oh, wow.
So, right away you kind of get the feeling that this was a real back and forth kind of battle.
Yeah, definitely a nail-biter.
And looking at the Bucks side of things, it seems like Giannis was just the biggest factor in their win.
Yeah, he was just dominant on both ends of the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Not just scoring, but also really impacting the game defensively.
Yeah, it's like when he drives to the basket, the Pelicans defense is forced to react, and that opens up opportunities for his teammates.
Right. It's not just about what he does himself,
Yeah,
but how he kind of forces the other team to adjust their whole game plan.
exactly. And then on the other side, Brandon Ingram for the Pelicans, he had a solid night offensively. He was scoring, but it seems like the Bucks had a plan for him, and the Pelicans maybe didn't have the same kind of counter for Giannis's all-around game.
Yeah, it's interesting how sometimes it's not just about who scores the most points, but who really dictates the flow of the game and kind of forces the other team to react to them.
Exactly, and it sounds like in this case, Giannis was that guy for the Bucks, really setting the tone and ultimately helping them pull out the win, even though it was close.
Yeah, those close games, they often come down to who can make those big plays in those key moments and who can kind of impose their will on the game.
Right, and in this case, it seems like the Bucks, with Giannis leading the charge, were able to do that just enough to get the victory.
Right, and you have to wonder if the Pelicans, had another level they could have reached defensively against him.
Yeah, could they have found a way to slow him down or force him to pass the ball more?
Exactly. Those are the questions that coaches and players are always trying to figure out, especially against a player like Giannis.
For sure. All right, let's move on to a game that some might call an upset out west. We've got the Warriors versus the Rockets, and the Rockets actually won this one, 106 to 96.
Whoa, hold on just a second.
Well,
The
that's-
Rockets beat the Warriors.
Yeah,
That's a pretty big deal.
it is, and it really highlights how, on any given night, anything can happen in the NBA.
For sure, especially when you have a team like the Rockets who are, they're young and hungry and they're playing with a lot of energy.
Right, and it seems like in this game they really came together as a team.
Yeah, the reports are talking about their cohesive play, their
Yeah.
defensive intensity. It was like they were all on the same page and they were just swarming the Warriors, not giving them any space to breathe.
Yeah, and that's got to be frustrating for a team like the Warriors who are used to kind of dictating the pace and the flow of the game.
Right. They like to move the ball quickly, find the open man, get those easy baskets. But the Rockets didn't let them do that in this game.
And a big part of that seems to have been Jalen Green for the Rockets.
Yeah, he really stepped up, made some big plays, especially when the Warriors were trying to make a comeback in the second half.
Yeah, and it's always impressive to see a young player like that rise to the occasion against a team like the Warriors who have so much championship experience.
Right. It shows that he's got that killer instinct, that ability to make plays when the game is on the line.
And on the flip side, even though Steph Curry had his moments like he usually does,
Of course.
it seemed like the Warriors as a whole just weren't really clicking.
Yeah, they weren't able to get into that flow that they're known for.
And you have to give credit to the Rockets defense for that. They were really disruptive. They were physical. They were making it tough for the Warriors to get comfortable.
Right. And that just goes to show that even the best offensive teams in the league can be slowed down if the other team is playing with enough intensity and focus on the defensive end.
Absolutely. All right, let's shift gears a bit and talk about a high-scoring game in the East. We've got the Nuggets versus the Pacers, and the Pacers won this one 125 to 120.
Wow. A lot of points on the board.
Yeah, this was a game where both offenses were really clicking.
Sounds like a track meet.
And for the Pacers, it was all about Tyrese Halliburton. He had an incredible game.
Oh, yeah. He was dishing out assists left and right, finding his teammates for open shots.
Yeah, it was like he was seeing the floor in slow motion, just picking apart the Nuggets defense with his passing.
And when the Nuggets tried to focus too much on his passing, he showed that he can score too.
Right, he's got that all-around game that makes him so dangerous.
Yeah, he's the type of player who can really take over a game and make everyone around him better.
And for the Nuggets, even though Jokic had a decent game, it just wasn't enough to overcome the Pacers.
Yeah, sometimes even the best players in the league can't do it all on their own.
Especially when the other team is playing as well as the Pacers were.
Right. They were sharing the ball, they were making shots, they were playing with a lot of confidence, and that can be really contagious.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, how do you even prepare for a player like Halliburton who can do so many different things well?
Right. It's a tough task for any coach or any team to try to figure out how to slow him down.
Okay, let's head back out west now for the Knicks visiting the Suns. And the Knicks came away with a pretty decisive win, 112-98.
Oh, wow. So the Knicks took care of business in Phoenix.
Yeah, they did. And it seems like Julius Randle was the main reason why.
Okay, what did he do?
Well, he was just doing it all, scoring inside and out, grabbing rebounds, really setting the tone for the Knicks on both ends of the floor.
He's a force when he's playing like that.
Yeah, and it sounds like the Suns, even though they have some really talented offensive players, they just couldn't really get anything going against the Knicks defense.
Interesting. I wonder if the Knicks had a specific game plan to try to shut down the Suns' main scorers.
Yeah, it sounds like Devin Booker in particular had a tough time finding open looks.
Right, and that just goes to show how important defense can be in the NBA.
Yeah, you can have all the offensive firepower in the world, but if you can't stop the other team from scoring, you're not going to win many games.
For sure. And this game was a good example of that the Knicks were able to disrupt the Suns' rhythm, force them into tough shots, and ultimately control the tempo of the game.
And it makes you think about, what kind of adjustments the Suns could have made or should have made to try to counter what the Knicks were doing.
Right. Coaching in the NBA is all about making those in-game adjustments, figuring out what's working, what's not working, and trying to put your players in the best position to succeed.
Absolutely. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about the Hawks versus the Jazz. This one was a high-scoring affair. The Hawks won at 147-134.
Wow, that's a lot of points from both teams.
Yeah, this was a game where the offenses were just on fire.
Sounds like a real shootout.
And for the Hawks, it was all about Trae Young.
Oh, yeah. He's always fun to watch.
Yeah, he was just incredible in this game, scoring at will, dishing out assists like it was nothing.
He's such a dynamic player. The way he can create his own shot and also set up his teammates is pretty special.
Yeah, and when he's playing like that, the Hawks offense is just so tough to stop.
They can score in bunches and from anywhere on the court.
And for the Jazz, even though they put up a lot of points themselves, they just couldn't keep pace with the Hawks.
Right. It's like they were trading baskets for a while, but then the Hawks just pulled away in the end.
Yeah, and it really highlights the Hawks' potential when their offense is clicking like that.
For sure. They're a team that can put up points in a hurry.
Yeah.
And if they can find a way to be more consistent on the defensive end, they could be a real contender in the East.
So, looking back at these 5 games, what really stands out to me is just the variety of styles and strategies that we saw.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that there's no one right way to play basketball.
Right. We saw teams that were dominant defensively, teams that were explosive offensively, teams that relied on individual brilliance, teams that won with teamwork and balance.
And that's what makes the NBA so fascinating to watch. You never really know what you're going to get from night to night.
Exactly, and it keeps things interesting for sure.
And speaking of interesting, we saw some really impressive individual performances in these games.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Giannis being Giannis, Halliburton just controlling the game, Randle doing it all for the Knicks, Trae Young putting on an offensive clinic.
It's like each game had its own little mini storyline within the larger context of the season.
Right, and those individual performances can have a big impact on the standings, the playoff race, all of that.
And for the fans, it's those moments, those individual flashes of brilliance that we remember.
Yeah, those are the things that get people talking. The highlights, the debates, it's all part of the fun.
Absolutely. All right, well, as we wrap up this deep dive into these recent NBA games, it's clear that the league is as competitive and as unpredictable as ever.
Yeah, there's never a dull moment.
And each game provides its own unique insights into the teams and the players involved.
And with all these individual performances and storylines developing, it makes you wonder, what's the bigger picture here?
Right. What are the trends that are emerging that we should be paying attention to?
So for you, the listener, I'd like to leave you with this thought as you continue to follow the NBA this season. What do you think is the most compelling storyline right now? Is it the rise of these dynamic young point guards? Is it the importance of team defense, or is it something else entirely?
Yeah, there's a lot to think about as the season unfolds.
Definitely, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more analysis and insights from the world of basketball.
All right, sounds good.
See ya.